So everyone, welcome to Masterpieces at Midday. Today it is my privilege to introduce Ariana Enriquez. She will be giving us a bit of behind the scenes of the Ceramics Research Center. Feel free to ask questions at any time, either in the chat or unmute yourself and just go ahead and ask your question if you have a question. But for now, I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Ariana.
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And check in. Can everybody see that all right? Yes, great. 1 second. We get all situated on my end. But yes, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Andrea mentioned, my name is Ariana Enriquez, and I am the Assistant Registrar at the ASU Art Museum, as well as a LACMA ASU Fellow. And today I will be talking to you about some behind the scenes magic that happens at our beloved Research Center from a registrarial perspective. Without further ado, I hope you all are ready for the fastest tour of your lives. Keep your eyes peeled, because if not, you might miss the entire thing. Oh, that was it. Thank you all for keeping up. I'm happy that you are all still here. Just kidding, it's happening again. I'm going to move to the next slide. So that was a fast video featuring the Ceramics Research Center stacks, which essentially are enclosed tiered shelves that serve as open storage. The CRC opened in 2002 and has since moved to a larger location at ASU's Brickyard in 2014, which allows us to have more of a presence along Mill Avenue. From its inception, the ceramics collection at the CRC has been displayed in open storage within the stacks, ordered chronologically from works created in the 1950s through the present. This concept allows year-round access to a majority of our ceramics collection, providing students, scholars, and the general public an opportunity to view important works. The CRC currently houses 1,020 ceramic works from the permanent collection. This is out of about 4,000 ceramics overall. So about 25% of our ceramics collection is currently on view at the CRC. We also hold various archives. So the Susan Harnley Peterson Archive, founded with a major gift from Susan herself, who dedicated her career to researching, writing, lecturing, and teaching about ceramics. This archive includes much of her expansive personal collection of books, photographs, notes, and pottery available to study. The CRC also holds significant ceramic archives from the Studio Potter magazine, which documents 30 years of creative activity in the field. And our library collection houses over 2,000 rare titles of rare exhibition catalogs, books, periodicals, and media. Students, collectors, curators, scholars, and the public can schedule appointments to examine specific works in the collection and related archival material. So upon walking among the stacks, I noticed that some ceramic works were not where they usually are. Some have been traveling during this COVID pandemic and not sheltering in place, one of which is Gertrude and Otto Natzler's vase. Anytime an object leaves their home in the stacks, we provide a placeholder card that explains where it has gone. It looks like in the case of the Natzler vase, it's having its star photography moment. I was able to locate this vase in the CRC's classroom, undergoing very interesting preparations for a museum-wide digitizing project. Through a grant the museum received, we are beginning the process of digitizing images of selected artworks from our permanent collection. We are working with a local contracted photographer to take these images of pieces from our collection. The end result will be high-resolution digital images that will be properly stored and categorized in our museum database. And from there, these images can be added to our museum website to be widely accessible to the public. This way, we are able to digitally share our great collection with you. Now, this involves a lot of prep work, which you can see a glimpse of here. Each object, oh, one second, admitting someone, each object that is being photographed from the CRC is removed from its stack, placed on a cart, wheeled to the classroom, which has become a designated prep area for this project, examined, and then treated and cleaned so the object is ready for its close-up. From a registrarial perspective, we are assisting with facilitating the movement and photography of these objects, assisting with any cleaning or conditioning that may be needed, and then once the images are taken, we'll upload them into each object's record in the museum database. This is Carrie Tovar, who is the registrar at the Scottsdale Museum of Contemporary Art. Since this project requires many hands, she is helping us out. And in this image, she's working on cleaning the glazed portions of our Carlton ball vase. That pile circled in red there shows that it shows all the schmutz, the dirt that's coming off of the surface of the glaze, which you wouldn't guess just by looking at it. I was able to catch our conservator, Dana Tepper, in action. So here is a brief video with my amateur cinematography of Dana discussing the cleaning process on this specific piece.
This is a vase and a vessel by Carlton Ball. It's an earthenware clay that has a lot of ridges in it, but it has this glazed decoration on the outside that's quite glassy and glossy, but the entire vase is really dirty. And so we're surface cleaning it, and we started out by dusting it with some vacuum suction and some soft brushes. And then we went back in with these cosmetic sponges that are really good for taking off a little bit slightly oily dirt that wouldn't have come up with the vacuum suction. We just covered the surface that way, and this is what they look like. This is what came off. And now we're actually surface cleaning using some moisture, and we use deionized water that's been through a filter, and we added a little bit of a surfactant to help break down the surface tension of the water and allow it to flow across the surface of this glazing more easily. And as you can see, lots of dirt comes off. So after we use the surfactant solution, we go back in with deionized water again, and we clear off any of the detergent solution, and then we buff it a little bit with the soft cloth, and it ends up shining up the glazed areas really nicely.
So I don't know about you, but I certainly learned a new word, that being surfactant, and that's added to deionized water. Deionized water is water that's been treated to remove all ions. Typically that means all of the dissolved mineral salts. So, and a surfactant is a substance which tends to reduce the surface tension of the deionized water in which it is dissolved. So as Dana mentioned, it can more easily flow over those dirty glazed surfaces of the vase. This gives you an idea about the care that each object requires. And this is also a really wonderful opportunity to clean and examine various works from the collection at this time.
This is a vase and a vessel by Carlton Ball.
One second. Moving forward, I take you now to the CRC's holding room. And as the name suggests, this art storage space allows for the temporary placement of artworks as they await installation or have just gone through deinstallation and are waiting on their return home, either in the stacks or at our larger museum, the Nelson Fine Arts Center building. Holding rooms also allow artwork to acclimate to the environment should we receive any artwork on loan from another state or even from another country. This helps the object get used to our warm climate prior to being unpacked. The artwork remains crated or boxed, unopened, for a minimum of 24 to 48 hours to allow it to adjust to the new surroundings. If the work is exposed too quickly to a new environment, it could cause the artwork to contract or expand, which over time can result in cracking or other damage. Some of the works in this photograph, such as the white ceramic dinnerware set on the bottom shelf center, are in preparation for the CRC's upcoming exhibition, Dinnerware, while the works on the cart, for example, are placed in preparation for the Digitization project. In the holding room, I ran into Grace, our Wingate conservation intern, as she is cleaning Marilyn Levine's Dr. Jew's bag, done in a masterful technique called trompe l'oeil. This is a French term for fool the eye. It is an art technique in which objects are sculpted and painted in photographically realistic detail as to deceive the viewer concerning the material reality of the object. This bag is entirely made out of clay. Levine's bag will also be a work that is photographed through the Digitizing project. Grace is carefully and meticulously cleaning the underside. Many of these ceramic works have museum wax on the bottom from previous exhibition use, so that museum wax needs to be removed prior to photography. Registrars are all up in and around exhibition installations to assist with the unpacking of the artwork, conditioning or examining the artwork along with our conservator, and checking our recorded installation notes to assist our preparators or art handlers, those who install the artwork, in properly installing the work. We're currently getting ready for the upcoming exhibition Dinnerware, opening at the CRC on March 27th. Now, remember that French term I shared with you? Well, this installation by Marilyn Lysa here uses the same trompe l'oeil technique, and certainly around lunchtime, it makes me very hungry. The classroom that you saw earlier has also become a staging area for this installation. You all will have to stay tuned for a later Masterpieces at Midday that will talk about this installation in depth. However, I wanted you to feast your eyes on all of the components that are involved in this work. 332 to be exact. This, I believe, is a work in our collection with one of the most components, and by components, I mean parts of the installation. Here you can see some of them in detail, done in the trompe l'oeil technique, and all made out of clay. From potato chips to ears of corn, sushi and salad, hors d'oeuvres and apples, all of which have a place at the large ceramic table they sit upon. Registrars are in charge of keeping track of all of these components and inventorying them physically while they travel in and out of storage and are installed and deinstalled, and also electronically in our database system. Just to give you an idea, here is a sexy screenshot of the component portion of the museum database. Although many may not find databases very alluring, registrars live for the database. This section tracks all 332 pieces of bad manners and also allows us to keep track of their locations. If any of the parts get separated or perhaps are moved out of the classroom, for example, away from the rest of the installation, we're sure to update this move in the database. With over 12,000 pieces in the museum's collection as a whole, tracking locations is a really important aspect of collections management to ensure that nothing gets misplaced, and if it is not on display, that it is safely secured in one of our storage vaults. Registrars are also in charge of physically labeling work with their accession number as they enter our collection. This helps us to identify the work as it lives and is cared for under our roof. Imagine carefully adhering a tiny paper label to a discrete area on 332 pieces. Most of the ceramic components in bad manners are physically labeled with their assigned accession number. However, since this piece can be installed slightly differently each time, we wanted to make sure that the component label would not be visible if arranged another way the next time of display. Meaning not all little pieces are physically labeled in this instance. We assess these kinds of situations on a piece-by-piece basis. These are images of the various parts laid out in the classroom at the CRC. As you can see, the ceramic bodies were not yet uncrated. Dana, our conservator, also looked over the components when the work was unpacked and placed notes next to those that needed museum wax removed or reduced, those that need surface cleaning, and a select few that need to be reattached to other parts. I think these images show the expanse of the installation in particular and what can go into making an exhibition happen. Another important aspect of behind the scenes collection maintenance is tracking the temperature and humidity in the building. At the CRC, we do this through small data loggers placed throughout the galleries and storage spaces that we can connect through via Bluetooth using an iPad. This device can record, display, and download temperature and humidity information to our iPad for analysis and tracking. We track this to ensure that the artwork remains in a stable condition. We want to pay attention to any potentially internal stresses created by expansion and contraction of art objects as moisture diffuses into or out of the surrounding air. And this ties directly to humidity. For example, should the relative humidity be too high, this can cause the growth of mold. Other forms of deterioration caused by humidity are warping, splitting, breaking of fibers and cracking, corrosion of metals, fading of dyes, and yellowing of paper. By making sure that temperature and humidity are in range, we can avoid these collection issues. The CRC also has really large floor-to-ceiling windows, which lets in great natural light, but it's actually not the best in terms of displaying works on paper that require a low level of light exposure. We take this into consideration when curators are planning on displaying works on paper in this space. Oftentimes, this looks like framing prints behind protective glass and not situating them on a wall that gets a lot of natural light, but sits further away from the windows within the gallery space. Since ceramics are fired in a kiln, they can certainly handle the heat. Ceramics are not nearly as sensitive as works on paper, which makes it okay for all of these works to be on display in the CRC, even if the space tends to get a little bit warmer due to the large windows. Probably the least glamorous part of behind the scenes collections maintenance is being the pest police, checking and changing out bug traps. I don't know what's worse, finding a roach in the trap or finding its leg and wondering where the roach went. So we place bug traps near entry points at the CRC, such as the front door, by the front desk, near the holding rooms, back doors, and the holding room's entrance, and also near drains located in the kitchen and bathrooms. This helps to capture pests before they are able to scurry further into the building. Although gross, pest management is really important in order to protect the collection as well as loaned artwork under our care. We can get rid of insect pests with different non-chemical methods, and these methods are preferred in museums since they don't damage the objects and don't harm the environment or health of museum staff. If an object we receive is thought to have pests living within it, we have a freezer, for example, to place the object in for up to 48 hours, which kills off potential pests. In past exhibitions, artists have used dirt in their installations, and we froze this dirt to rid of the threat of any unwanted critters entering the building. Our bug traps also let us know when certain seasons of insects are around. For example, we catch a high number of crickets in our traps in the summer when their activity is the highest. Silverfish are also a big indicator to be mindful of because they nibble on the edges of many types of paper products, book bindings, and even wallpaper. They're also one of the most abundant pest species in housing collections. With a print collection of about 6,000 pieces, we make sure that we're not seeing groupings of silverfish caught in our bug traps. That paper full of holes on the right is an example of the damage they can do if they access paper. So how does one know that a registrar has been through a gallery? The dreaded but necessary do not touch sign, sampled here next to Toshiko Takeizu's piece on display. Although do not touch signage can be aesthetically off-putting, it is an important part of exhibitions to remind people to be careful around the artwork and frankly to not touch it. In the case of ceramics, the oils from our hands can damage the surface of an unglazed piece. With each exhibition comes a safety walk where we work with our security, preparators, and curators to go over any potential risk areas in the layout of the gallery. Works that are vulnerable to touching, such as this one here, will receive a do not touch sign as a friendly reminder. Taking exhibition design into consideration, sometimes a do not touch sign is agreed upon instead of having to use a vitrine, which is the cover protecting this Patty Warashina piece here. Should a vitrine not be used, museum wax is often placed on the underside of a ceramic work to assist in holding it in place. So the next time you visit a museum and you spot a do not touch sign or a vitrine, you know that involved a collaborative discussion on what is safe for the artwork and also what is safe for the public visiting the work. Being a caretaker of a museum collection also involves becoming the temporary caretaker of lenders' artwork. Most commonly, the museum will borrow works of art for display in our exhibitions, as is the case with this work here. What you're looking at is a textile titled Seamist, woven by Toshiko Takeizu on loan to us for the exhibition Look to Nature, which just closed at the CRC. The 3 Toshiko forms placed on top of the textile are part of our permanent collection. This textile was shipped to us with a hanging rod so that we would easily display the work on the wall. However, the curator's vision was to have it nicely laid out in this way on a pedestal with other works by the artist softly placed on top. This decision to display the work in this way warranted a discussion with the lender to make sure that they were okay with these new layout plans. There is a lot of behind the scenes action that involves getting a loan from the lender to the gallery space. I won't bore you with the details of loan agreements, but when we finally receive the work, it is placed in our holding room to acclimate, as mentioned earlier. I think I often most eagerly await the unpacking of a loan piece of artwork. It's almost like unwrapping a gift. Registrars are tasked with documenting the unpacking of the artwork. We take step-by-step photographs of this process so that when the exhibition ends and the work is deinstalled, our preparators can refer back to those images and ensure that we pack it back up as we received it, unless our preparators decide that there is a safer way to pack the work. Here are some images of the unpacking process for Takeizu's work, Seamist. After the work is unpacked, we conduct a condition report. This involves closely examining the artwork and taking note of any damages it may have, or in the case of this textile, being mindful of any loose strands that could cause tears or unraveling. For a loan, we do both an incoming and outgoing report, one before the exhibition opens and one after it closes. And this allows us to track any changes that may occur to the work while it is on display. If any damage does occur, while the work is on loan to us, or significant changes occur on or to the piece, it is our duty to contact the lender. If damage to the work occurs during transit, we team up with our conservator or a contract conservator in consultation with the lender and discuss next steps. These scenarios require transparency and communication. The last project I wanted to share with you involves the movement of these hunky ceramic figures to the Ceramics Research Center. Since registrars need to keep track of the location of all objects, we assisted in overseeing the movement and installation of these 2 Viola Fry sculptures, Reclining Blue Man and Reclining Red Man, with the help of our conservator and preparators, who really are the hands that install the work. And just to note, this move also took place pre-COVID, so that is the reason why our preparators are not wearing masks in the following images. Viola Fry is best known for her brightly colored monumental ceramic figures. They come apart and come together almost like a puzzle. This allows her to fire them in the kiln, but can make for precarious installation. We wanted to make sure that when the parts or components of these sculptures were restacked, there would not be any undue grinding of the pieces that sit atop of one another as they rest into place. This grinding can cause pressure and losses in both the surface glazing and clay body. In order to solve this problem, our conservator reached out to other institutions with Fry sculptures in their collections and asked them how and if they have come up with a solution to avoid ceramic loss when installing these works. We learned that placing thin mylar sheets in between each of the parts can potentially help to ease the immediate pressure of one piece sitting on top of the other. As our preparators worked, they traced out mylar sheets that fit the ends of each ceramic piece, gently putting them into place, as you can see with these 2 lower right images there. You can also see some strain in our preparators' faces in the top left image as they stack the higher parts into place. They are quite heavy. And this is a new way to install the sculptures that had not been taken into consideration before. Our hope is that it will assist with the longevity and stability of the figures. Placing these figures in the window of the CRC helps to welcome visitors in. Another great part about working behind the scenes at a museum institution is troubleshooting these kinds of problems and navigating the challenges that may come from certain installations such as this one. Behind the scenes of collections management always involves diverse tasks that keep you on your toes. I hope that the next time you visit a museum, you can consider all of the collaborative behind the scenes work that goes into making an exhibition happen and what goes into caring for the permanent collection so that it can continue to be viewed and enjoyed by many people for years and years to come. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your afternoon to join us and learn more about what happens behind the scenes at the Ceramics Research Center to help steward the collection. I've also placed the CRC's hours here. We are doing reserved ticketed entry if you are local and able to come pay us a visit. And thank you so much.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or just ask them. We just had one pop up and it says, can you talk about what drew you to the profession and what course of study you took?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Initially, I mean, I've always loved art. As a painter myself, I always want to be around it. So the idea of working in a museum was very alluring to me. Initially, I started out in the education department at the ASU Art Museum with Andrea. And so I shifted into registrarial work because I wanted to touch the artwork, quite frankly, and to like have, you know, be able to learn about the ins and outs and behind the scenes stuff that's involved. In terms of course of study, I got my undergraduate degree at ASU in art history and in painting, and I'm currently working on getting my master's in art history, which I think involves a lot of like theoretical practice. I feel like a lot of the hands-on skills I have learned has been on the job at the museum.
Okay, so Ariana, I have a question.
Yeah.
You have like a challenging, like I loved a lot of your pictures of marking. Like, have you ever had like a really challenging work that you've tried, like you personally were trying to like label with the appropriate information and just got super frustrated with?
I think personally, if that's ever the case, we'll sometimes forego a label. Like if it's so tiny that the public eye is going to be able to see it when it's on display, you know, that's just no good. We don't want that. We always want it to be discreet and, you know, for our purposes. So in the case of that, I certainly would avoid kind of slapping a label on there. I think over time, it's also gotten easier to label ceramic works. In the past, we used to use, I believe like an acrylic based white paint and then paint on or write on the number, which over the years has caused a lot of discrepancy due to handwriting. So as the years have progressed and as like registrarial methods have advanced, now we're printing them out and adhering them with B72, which is like a sticky substance that's also okay to place on the artwork's surface. And so this has helped ease, you know, that part of our work.
We have another question from Sarah. She says, is there a particular piece that you've asked that you needed to handle that felt particularly special?
That's a really great question. I think it's hard. It's really hard to choose. I don't know if a ceramic work comes to mind immediately. What comes to mind for me is a painting or paintings that we had on loan from Ana Teresa Fernandez for an exhibition a couple years ago. And I think since I'm, you know, a painter myself, I really admire her work. And so it's kind of like having a fangirl moment, being able to touch these artists' work and really getting in close and seeing their process, seeing their layers, you know, perhaps in the case of ceramics, their glazing techniques. I think that that's a really special and rewarding part of being a registrar. I'm certainly always humbled by handling the work.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
I have one. Since you're an artist and in the registrar department, has your work at the museum impacted your own art making process?
Yeah, that's a great question. If anything, it's alerted me to like the no-nos that I've been doing and like the bad ways I've been storing my work in closets or hanging them across from a window or in the bathroom, for example. So yeah, it's definitely given me a lot of insight to keeping works away from moisture and not letting them, be displayed across from a very well-lit window. And it's also helped me in better storing and being mindful of using archival materials to, care for my work long term. Yeah, thank you for that question.
All right, sorry about my excitement in the background. The other thing that's happening this weekend at the museum is our annual Playfest. And so that's this weekend, it's to go. So if anyone wants to come pick up some supplies in their local for their kids 12 and under, you're welcome to come do so, it's free. Besides that, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. So Ariana, thank you so much for taking the time to create the most interesting behind the scenes presentation that I think we could have, because as I'd like to say is, even though you moved to the registrar department, aka the dark side, it's very clear to see you are still an educator by this presentation. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Our next presentation will be on March, let me look at the calendar, 16th. And I hope to see you all there. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.